What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today I am talking about the latest offering from Azure Emote, CRYPTIC AURA. This also came out on July 25th, this time on Testimony Records, and this is the band's fourth studio full-length overall. And, well, this band's been known to have long gaps between releases. So for those who don't know, this is a Philadelphia-based avant-garde progressive death metal band. This is actually kind of a supergroup because it features current and former members of bands like Death, Monstrosity, Fear Factory, Raven, Rumpelstiltskin Grinder, and Tristania. So a lot of big names right there. But the core members are Mike Hrubovac, I probably said that wrong, formerly of Monstrosity, Mike Heller, currently in Raven, formerly of Fear Factory, Kelly Clonlon, who was formerly in Monstrosity and Death, Ryan Mull from Rumpelstiltskin Grinder, and Pete Johansson, who was a live member of Tristania. So that's the core band right there. And so, yeah, pretty big names in the underground coming together for this very strange, very wild album right here. So this is my first time checking this band out, obviously, and I was curious because I saw Mike Heller was in the band, same with the other Mike and Kelly, so I'm like, okay, this might be something up my alley, even if it's described as avant-garde, even though on this I would also call it prog. But as far as what you're getting on this album is just absolutely bonkers. All these transitions can vary from times. It can feel smooth, other times it might feel a little abrupt, but like tracks in particular that I thought were just the most bonkers. The opening track, Into Abysmal, I should say, why did I say Abyssal? Into Abysmal Oblivion. This one, kind of for the most part, goes for classic death metal tropes like chugs and tremolos. There's even some like really killer double bass work. Of course, Mike Heller puts on a phenomenal performance here. But there's really tasty melody on here, and it does get pretty technical, I would say, almost to the level of like Cryptopsy technicality. Of course, you get your excuse me. Of course, you get your blast beats. You also get some like thrashy machine gun riffs. But lead work, I might as well go ahead and talk about the lead work on this album. Lead work on this album, for the most part, was pretty damn solid. Hell, there's some wonderful leads, like particularly in Insomnia Nervosa. That one might have been my favorite lead on the album. It kind of had a little bit of like a John Petrucci kind of vibe when it came down to like how it's very emotional sounding, but also executed very well. Now, one of the big things that's going to be apparent throughout the entire album is the violin, which is Pete Johansson doing the violin play, which immediately gave me vibes of Neobliviscaris, which I would say Neobliviscaris could be a fair comparison point for this band, even though I would say this band isn't like as lush per se as Neobliviscaris, although this album has some lush moments, believe you and me. But as far as like parts that stood out for different reasons, like the opening to Insomnia Nervosa felt a little doomier, like it's a doomy chug and then it goes into a nice groove, and hell, even throughout the song there's more atonal guitars. Aeon's Drift, this one, kind of an odd one because it has more of like a classic heavy metal riff structure that happens to have some chug and blast beats to it, but you do get like some really cool double time. Hell, it gets flat out epic at points on this album, like Here and Disease of the Soul. Those two songs will have, and even Defiance Infernus, those songs will have big epic progressions to like make everything sound bigger and sound more insane in some way, shape, or form. Bleed with the Moon, couple of things here. There's a brief organ section, which I wish they would have dragged that organ section out a little bit before it goes right into Chug City and even a descending riff. And hell, the riffs on this song, some of the heaviest on the album. Defiance and Furnace, again, you get like bigger doomy riffs, big, epic, you had evil progression. And then Provoking the Obscene is where you get another aspect that will pop up on a few tracks, and that's female vocals. I couldn't find who was the female vocalist for these songs, but she does a really good job at complementing some of the more lush parts on the album. But with Provoking the Obscene, great proggy melodies that show up. Like, I could almost compare them again to like Dream Theater and hell, even like Queensryche a little bit, but it's just on top of like a death metal filter, or it's got a death metal. It's early and not early in the morning, but it's in the morning when I'm doing this, and I don't function that well. But like with a death metal filter. Even some keyboards show up, which honestly, I'm shocked there wasn't more keyboards. I would have loved to have heard more keyboard parts because it's going for more of that proggy flair. But Disease of the Soul, like, for the most part, it's straightforward in terms of what they're going with, and that's blast beats, tremolo riffs, groove, but you do get some really soothing bass grooves and tasty drums with the violin playing together, but it does get pretty chaotic towards the end. Feast of Leeches, I mean, this one reminds me quite a bit of Death. Like, there are some melodies and harmonies that remind me of later era Death, but you do get like more sinister sounding riffs. Return to the Unknown, this one was a pretty big standout because I get echoes of Cynic on this track. Like, there's lots of jazz fusion rhythms and bass melodies that remind me of Cynic's Focus quite a bit. And even in the riff department, it's mostly melodic, but towards the end, it does get heftier with the guitars. And again, the female vocals that show up on this track were beautifully done. Production-wise, pretty wild production, but also great mix. Like, you can hear everything. Of course, everybody played their asses off. Mike does a great job at the vocals, which I was familiar with his delivery in Monstrosity, so he sounds great still. Really, the only things I have to complain about would be some of the transitions could have been smoother, and the last track, Writhing Lunacy, was just a needless outro of screams and synths, and I feel like they should have just cut it. But overall, I thought, despite how bonkers this album was, I still thought this was some really good stuff. I'm going to go with a 3.5 out of 5. I think if the transitions on some of these songs were a little smoother, this could have gone up to a 4. In fact, this does lean closer to a 4 than a 3 for sure in terms of my 3.5. So if you are a fan of, Death, Neobliviscaris, Cynic, Mithras, hell, even Devin Townsend, check this out. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.